Hi all of you, hi YouTubers. So today, in this video, we're gonna compare 80s with today video game edition. So today, I'm gonna show you what my video game life was like during the 80s. I mean, I got my first game system, and there was the Atari 2600, and it's like this one right here. It's exactly like this one that I had in 1981, but I mean, of course, it's not the same one, but it's exactly like what we had. And then, going on to like, I just know, like, going on to like the mid 80s, I mean, like the early 80s, we had a color TV that's similar to this one here. I'm gonna show you right now. It was kind of like this one. We had that on the family color TV, that Atari, back in the day. So, but I mean, it was underprivileged. So my dad, my dad was a meanie, or my dad was a Groucho Marx. So we were only able to play Atari only when he allowed us, so on the family color TV. But back in the day, my dad did not like for us to use the TV that much, because it was thought to be that if you use the Atari on the TV too much, it'll ruin it. Some people used to speculate that, so to speak. Even my neighbors used to say that. You would tell my dad that. And then, and then from that point on, my dad was kind of weary about us playing the Atari on that family color TV, But, I mean, it was underprivileged that we were able to use it, so here and there. And then occasionally my dad used to play the Atari himself, He used to love the Pac-Man game and the cartridge Freeway. He used to love that game, Excuse me. So, anyway... But anyway, going on to like the mid 80s, when my dad got divorced and everything, and then my mom and my dad got divorced in 1985, and then we were on our own. So it was kind of happiness, because we were not restricted as much for doing what we want around the house, like the Atari thing or whatever, like things to do with that, We were more free to play the Atari or anything like that in the house. And but the thing was, also one of the things to point out too, like, we had the family color TV, but we didn't have our own TV in our rooms. But my dad, back in the early 80s, he had bought us one of these, this one right here. He had bought this TV for us, like back in the early 81, like for all of us to use. But shortly after, he takes it away, and I mean, he wants it for himself, Yeah, I mean, then he had it in his room, in their room, so he could watch the TV in the room, But this is a black and white TV, and then remember how we used to have to, when we would turn it on, we would have to wait for the screen to light up. Remember that? And then to set up the Atari, like, we used to, like, turn on the TV, wait for the thing to turn on. Well, like, remember when we used to have to fine-tune it with these TVs? You remember we used to have to do this? And then we were never guaranteed to get a perfect picture, So, with this Atari here. But anyway, going on to like the mid 80s, when we didn't really have any color TVs, because that family color TV broke. It got bad, and we really didn't have the money to buy a new one, so we had to go with the TV that my dad bought us for Christmas, but he took later on. But then, as the time went by, it went back to us, and so this was what we had. And it's exactly this one, too. I mean, this is not the same one, but it's the exact model, exactly the same model. And the same brand and everything. Gold Star. And then, that it's what we had. And we used to watch our TV in the rooms, too, once in a while. This was the TV we had in our bedroom once in a while, here and there, until my dad would take it away from us again. But, during the mid-'80s, like, when we officially got to keep the TV to ourselves, like for the Atari, mostly for the Atari, we did not, we really did not have the privilege of the color TV in the living room, so this is what we had, So if I wanted to play my Atari, I would turn on this little black and white TV and wait for the screen to turn on, and then we would turn on the Atari. So it was only a little black and white screen, Remember this? And then we would never be guaranteed a good picture, though. So this is the Atari, Simple joystick button, Simple joystick and fire button. That's all it is. And then we would plug in the joysticks. And then the cartridge-based games. These are some of these, like, remember when the screen would do that? Like, we would put in the cartridge, turn on the console. And then we would always have to be doing this because the picture was not always nice, like, it would be kind of thin. This is what we dealt with back in the day, We used to deal with this, we lived with it, we were fine, I was happy, Shit. See, though, we would always have things like this going on. Remember this? Remember these? Dang. So, remember all this? I loved playing this game in the mid-'80s when we had this TV here. Back in my day, we used to have this game. This is just one of the games I really loved for the Atari. Yeah, we have to make sure the cartridge is in there good. But I never had an issue with having to do this. I never really had an issue with this, with the Atari. The Atari did not used to give us issues with that. Word zapper. Okay, shit. This is in there. Ship. We have to spell the word ship. Ship. Okay. And then, I'm almost done here. And then after we do that, and then that's what we would do. We'd hit the butterfly after Z, and then sauce. We have to spell the word sauce. But we had a lot of different levels, And with these, you had to avoid hitting these things because it shifts the spaceship on the side, making it harder to target the letters that you want. But of course, we would change the difficulty on this game, and then it would include like these things that would kill the ship, and then the random ones. If you hit these, and then it would turn the letters random, and then making it harder to get the letters that we want. So anyway, I'm just gonna turn that off. So that's what we had. That's what I had during the middle 80s. This was my game system. This was me. This was my video game. This was my Xbox. This was my Xbox and my PlayStation. This was it right here. That's what I used to do. We had this little TV, but only some of us were privileged to have color TVs. A lot of them some people had like the little 13-inch color TVs like this one here. But it was only some people that had the privilege, because back then it was like maybe $200 to buy it. It was probably even more than that. If you wanted one like this, but in a color TV version, say it would have been like $250 of $250 to get one like that, which is equivalent to $500 in today's money, even more, $600. But this TV, it was like about $100 back in the early 80s, and it was just a little black and white 12-inch TV. So that's what we had, back in the day. And then going on to the late 80s, then we started advancing to the newer games. And then we got this, although we got this kind of late, we got this in 1990. But this was out in the middle 80s, but we didn't have the money to buy these. We didn't have money all over the place. So, and this game, we got this one in 1990. The first time we came around the Nintendo system, it was 1990, and I thought the graphics were awesome. I love the graphics compared to the Atari. Shit. It was like real. It's like real people. Like the graphic is like real people compared to the Atari, back in the day. If we can remember back in the day, the Atari, the home run game. I don't have it right here, but I have the rest of my game. But, I'll tell you, the games like the baseball games or the sports games, I used to actually make fun of the characters on these because they just looked funny, like Home Run is one of the shittiest games here. But my dad and Hector and Arnold, they had fun with this game, though. They had a lot of fun. They had fun, even though the graphics suck, but they did have fun. If I remember, Remember these games? This is the Home Run. So this is like the primitive version of these sports games. Yeah. That's the primitive. And then Hector, later on, I got this football game, Super Challenge Football. I got this game for like $6 back in the time. And then Hector loved playing this game here. Back in the day, Heckler, I thought this was really cool back in my day. Because, the people on this game look pretty realistic, look sort of realistic, in a way. But, that was back in the day, shit. Remember these? Oh, man, that game is a trip. And then, we had our fun with this Atari. I had my joyous days with the games, this was my Xbox back then, So, and these are like many of these games are what I had, and then of course these two, I really loved these two games back in the mid 84, 85. I tell you, this was my Xbox and my PlayStation 4. As of this video, this is 2009. But later on, in the 80s, we got this Nintendo. And then the Genesis, later on, it came out in 1988 or 89 or something. But I got this one about the same time as this. But, this was in the middle 80s, but we didn't really have the money to buy it. And then the Genesis. And then this was the Genesis here. This was what we had in the middle 90s. I'm not sure why it's making that sound. Well, we had this game in the middle. Now, this is kind of more like the middle 90s Xbox and PlayStation that we had. So, Aladdin. And this was the 90s. So those are some of the things that we had during the late 80s and 90s. But mostly like late 80s and early 90s. I had this. This was like the advance of the 80s. But our Xbox and PlayStation was this. We had nothing, no internet, or we didn't have any internet, or there's no means of connecting or downloading anything, nothing. It was nothing like that. It was just these cartridges. That's all it is, basically. So now, to show you what things are like today in 2019. Today, what my kids are into right now. So this was 1980s. This was my life in the 80s. My video game life in the 80s. Now, comparing it with today. So anyways, this is like our today's video games 2019. This is the things that we have today. Well, this is an Xbox One. And it's been out since 2013 or 2014 or something. They have not come up with any new video games, new consoles or anything as of today, as of this video. I don't know what they're going to come up with next. As of 2019 March, I don't know if they're going to call the next PlayStation 5 or not. But this is what we have today: Xbox One and PlayStation 4. So this is turning on, and then today's TVs. Well, it's pretty significantly different than yesterday's TVs. I mean, today's TVs are all flat panel now. They're flat panel TVs, and they're very sophisticated. These TVs are very sophisticated. And with these game systems, I mean, like these days, everything's online these days. As of today, my kids, they love to play this game. Roblox is an online game. And everything these days, it's downloading, we're downloading everything, these days. And then Minecraft is very popular. I don't know how it is right now, but I know like the online game Fortnite is very popular right now as well. So and then with these today's game systems, I mean, it's very sophisticated compared to yesterday's game systems, very sophisticated. So I'm trying to get this thing started. In today's game systems, we have everything's all wireless now. Like, got the wireless controllers and so I'm gonna try. This one's not wanting to turn on. Sometimes these things get a little finicky, but everything's all very, very sophisticated, It's like everything's like online now these days, My games, and then what's the beauty of today's game systems is that we could download the games and store them on the hard drive rather than cartridges, so we can instantly load up and go, All of these games I got I got these for free, so to speak, through this Xbox Live thing, They give us 4 games a month, for free, supposedly. See, many of these, I mean, it's the beauty of today's games because we could just simply download the games and play them, and play. Some of these I bought them, but I mean, a lot of these games, like, it's the beauty of it. We could download and store them on the hard drive rather than plugging in the cartridges and stuff, like, that's the thing that's nice about today's game systems, but like a lot of these games, though, I mean, some of these games that we like to play, they're online, we need online, but if we're talking about the games that we don't need online, but the thing that's nice about this, well, of course, the graphics are so much better, of course. I'm gonna play this. I have not played this game, but this is just an example, like, this is an older game, but I mean, this Xbox, but I mean, tell you, I mean, it's very sophisticated compared to the Atari today, I mean, the Atari was like simple, very simple point systems, and over here it's not. This is not like a point system game. It's not games that we're trying to score the highest points, It's a game, these games are all role playing these days, and we're trying to, like, we're trying to finish a mission with these games. But with the Atari, it was mostly like all about points. Remember that? Like the Asteroids or Pac-Man. I mean, Atari was very simple video games back then, very simple. And I mean, points, and the games on the Atari used to last maybe a few minutes at a time, like, typically. But with these games, you could be playing these for months before you're finally finished with the game, before you finally beat the last boss. And then with these games, you save them. You have to save the data. You have to save your progress. And you have to be careful not to lose the hard drive or memory card that you saved your progress on, or else you have to start all over with these games. Anyway, so I mean, these are very sophisticated, but the thing that could be bad about it is, like, it's more complicated, very complicated. And even to play these games, it's pretty complicated for a beginner, but I mean, the whole shit, everything's all complicated, and then often you might come around to a time when you need to update, you need to update the system, and then if you're playing offline, or if the internet wasn't working or something, then you couldn't play it until you're able to update it. So, talking about, like, games and downloaded stuff, I mean, for me, I think to download the stuff is actually much better off, because you don't have to deal with these discs. And because if we're talking about disc-based games, like, I mean, they could be a nuisance because they scratch easily, and then the laser systems will often break, and then, it's kind of complicated to fix these things, and the discs might scratch, and then it renders them unplayable and everything. But I mean, the other choice that we have is to download the games, but sometimes we just don't like to download the games because we want the physical copy of these games. Because, for my thought about these downloaded games, I would think of it as, I mean, something that I would not be a great fan of either, because I would think that what if the account goes bad or something on our Xbox or PlayStation or something, and then we would lose out on this game, and then we would have to re-download it and stuff. That's my thought, though. I don't know if that really actually ever happens. I don't think it's not anything that would ever happen. But I mean, the thing about, like, and then these the disc-based games that we choose the physical formats. I mean, sometimes we like the physical format because we have something in our hands, that we have something to show for the $60 that we pay for these games. But it's kind of inconvenient too, because you have to put in the disc every time that you want to play the game, and then you have to be careful with the disc and everything. It can be an inconvenience, but for me, I think it's apparently more convenient with the downloading downloading games instead, because also a good thing about downloading games is that you don't have to worry about anybody stealing your physical copied games, you know. Yeah, you don't have to worry about that, you know. But for me, I don't have any disc-based games. I have everything downloaded instead. Everything's downloaded instead because because I'm getting it for free. I mean, it's like through the Xbox Live thing. We get these every month, you know. Get 4 games every month, you know. So I mean, I figure, you know, why not, you know. So I mean, so I would have to say, all in all, I think the downloaded games is kind of a little better because I mean it's less hassle, you know. I mean, like it, and then yeah, you can conveniently put it on a hard drive, and you can bring all of your games with you, you know. This is one of the games from the Xbox One. I was getting a little bit into it, just a little bit, you know. See, the graphics is very lifelike compared to the Atari, you know. Very lifelike. But I can imagine what the next video game is going to be like, you know. I mean, the Xbox 2 or Xbox 720 or whatever. And then what else? And maybe like the Xbox, maybe like it's a PlayStation 5, I'm assuming that they're going to come up with, you know. I'm just... That's funny. These games. Well, anyway. That's too funny. Well, anyway. I love the graphics of today's games, though, actually. So, I mean... Anyway. So, I mean, that's what I have to say. Comparing it with the Atari and today's games. So, going back to the Atari, when it came to my days of playing games, playing my Xbox in 1985, this is what it looked like for me playing my Xbox in 1985. PlayStation 4. PlayStation 5, 1985. Let's see, I want to play. Very simple. Okay. I remember this. Okay, how do we start the game here? And Atari, this was the games. How do we start this game? Very simple. I mean, it's just 4, like the up, down, left, right, and a fire button. That's all it is. I liked this game. And then the little primitive sound of the sound effects of these games. Remember the primitive sound effects? Well, anyway, I mean, this is gonna conclude the video of comparison of today versus 1980s video game systems. So I hope you liked this video, and I hope I wasn't repeating too much. Well, anyway, so I mean that's how my life looked, my video game life looked like in the 80s. But all I could tell you is I did enjoy my video game life. I really did. I mean, I really enjoyed it, you know. I could just tell you that much. So that concludes the video. Alright, I hope you liked it, okay? I'll see all of you again.